Well, good morning. Good morning. And welcome to the First Parish Church of Stowe and Acton, a welcoming and spiritual community. My name is Ruth Lull, and I'm on the board at FPC. For those visiting FPC for the first time, we welcome you. Please let us know you were here by filling out one of our visitor information cards in the pews and hand it to an usher, drop it on the plate, or hand it to Meg, our welcoming staff member. Our minister, staff, and board are listed on the front of the order of service. Please feel free to ask me or any of these people for more information. If you would like a large print order of service or hymnal or an assisted listening device, please ask our ushers. Our assisted listening devices are small radios, which anyone is welcome to use one of these to listen to the service from another space in or around our building. After the service, please join us for coffee and conversation in our fellowship hall, which is one level down over there in the other end of our building, or in a breakout room if you're joining us online. I'd like to draw your attention to the announcements in our order of service and also invite you to check out our webpage for more information. And you can also sign up there for our newsletter and email alerts. And now, let us come together for a time of community, singing, and worship.
Good morning. Great. My name is Sharon Brownfield, and I wanted to share what FPC means to me and why I have chosen to give up my time and whatever talent I have and treasure to ensure that FPC continues to be the thriving community I've come to love. About 20 years ago, my husband Rick and I, after a year-long search, found a house in Stowe and moved in. As empty nesters, we had no children to help us integrate into the into the community. While familiar with the area, having previously lived in Acton some years before, we wanted to create a new community. The question was how to make friends and connect with people as older adults. We were familiar with Unitarian Universalists, having attended the mainline UU Church in Philadelphia. We concluded that the best way to connect to a community was through finding a church, and First Parish was in the center of town. We started slowly getting involved since I was still commuting back and forth to Washington, D.C. for work. We were introduced to small group ministry and participated in small dinner gatherings. These events enabled us to meet and get to know a few people and begin creating the community we sought. We started joining in with different activities, including fundraisers like peeling apples and volunteering at the Harvest Fair. These our activities were not only raising money for FPC, but afforded us the opportunity to get to know others. It was at the White Elephant table that I met Ellen Kissinger, and we started partnering at other events. And at one of the Harvest Fairs, Marcia Rising approached me and suggested I participate in the Medical Reserve Corps in town because of my background in Red Cross. I was now becoming involved in town. Our interest in social justice work was enhanced by the work that many in FPC were already doing. I learned about issues that I was not aware of, such as Southeast Asia relief, LGBTQ+, and transgender rights. Learning did not stop there, as several adult education classes deepened my understanding of spirituality through other faiths. Saturday morning breakfasts introduced me to a variety of speakers and topics, expanding my knowledge. Being in this community is also fun. Social gatherings such as community art shows, talent nights, potluck dinners, and Halloween parties are just a few. There is so much to choose. I never was at a loss for how to participate. At the heart of this community, I found deep caring and connections for one another through visitations, cards of sympathy, appreciation, meals for people who are struggling, or simply a friendly hug or smile. This is the essence of community. Our original goal of finding a community was more than achieved. FPC has offered me a place that challenges me, encourages me to grow, enables me to be my better self, and explore my interests while learning new ones. FPC is a place with a caring, welcoming, and loving community that is sustained and grows by the radical generosity of the financial support of its members and friends. If you are able, I encourage you to pledge your support as I have during this stewardship drive. I invite you to stop by the stewardship table at coffee hour with questions or just to chat. Thank you.
One moment, technology. There we go. New computer, I need to set it to not go into sleep mode quite as quickly. Our opening words this morning are from Gary Kowalski. We gather here to worship, to seek the truth, to grow in love, to join in service, to celebrate life's beauty and find healing for its pain, to honor our kinship with each other and with the earth, to create a more compassionate world, beginning with ourselves, to wonder at the mystery that gave us birth, to find courage for the journey's end, to listen to the wisdom that guides us in the quietness of this moment. And Marcia Rising is going to light our chalice this morning as I light our Advent candle. In this season of frost and cold, as light wanes and the year closes, we light candles of hope, Chalice and Advent. Hope, that thing with feathers, but also muscle and bone. Hope, that living thing we call on for peace in this world, in our times, for an end to oppression, for the arc of justice to grow stronger, for hate to end and love to prevail. Our opening hymn is number 241 in your gray hymnals, in the Bleak Midwinter. Please rise in body or in spirit. And please join in our covenant and affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant. We dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. As we share our covenant and affirm our values, we would also like to, as we begin, acknowledge that this service is being held by a community that gathers on the stolen traditional lands of the Massachusetts, Nipmuc, Pawtucket, and Wampanoag people. We pay respect to those Indigenous peoples who lost their lives in the colonization of this land and recognize that these Indigenous tribes are still today facing violations of sovereignty, territory, and water. We give thanks for the earth we walk upon, for the waters, the life-giving plants, and all the earth's creatures, as well as the wind, sun, moon, and stars. And we recognize that this is just a first step in moving towards right relationship with Native peoples and the healing of this earth. Rayla.
Good morning. We were having some big sneezes over there. So I would like to invite everyone who's young or young at heart to please come join me up front for our time for all ages.
You'll see our order of service is a little different today. So don't worry, I haven't forgotten joys and sorrows. They're coming later. Our reading today is the Griever's Holiday Bill of Rights by Bruce Conley. I shared this with you about 4 years ago, but it's such a good reading I thought it was worth sharing again. He writes, 1, you have the right to say time out anytime you need it. Time to let up, blow a little steam, step away from the holidays, have a huddle, start over. 2, you have a right to tell it like it is. When people ask, how are you? You have the right to tell them how you feel, how you really feel, not just what they want to hear. P.S. You also have the right to smile and say you're fine because telling them how you really feel isn't worth your time. Some people will never understand anyways. 3, you have the right to some bah humbug days. You don't have to be jolly old St. Nicholas all the time. You are not a bad person just because you don't feel like singing Christmas carols all day. 4, you have the right to do things differently. There is no law that says you must always do the holidays the same way. You can do 10 cards instead of 100 or no cards at all. You can open presents at somebody else's house. You can do without a tree. You can have pizza instead of turkey. The list is endless. 5, you have the right to be where you want to be at home or with the relatives, be in any city, any state you choose. So what if you don't have snow during the holidays? There's no law that says you must stay home. 6, you have a right to some fun. When you have a day that isn't so bad and you feel like doing something just for fun, do it. Don't be afraid of what someone else will say if they see you laughing and having a good time. Laughter is every bit as important as tears. 7, you have a right to change direction in midstream. Holiday grief is unpredictable. You may be ready to go somewhere or do something and suddenly be overwhelmed. And when that happens, it's okay to change your mind. There's plenty of time in life to be predictable. Exercise your right to change when you need to. 8, you have a right to do things at different times. Go to church at a different time. I mean, I'm not saying there'll be a service then, but open presents at a different time. Serve your meal at a different time. Give up and go to bed at a different time. Don't be a slave to the holiday clock. 9, you have a right to rest, peace, and solitude. You don't have to be busy all the time. Take a nap whenever you need one. Take time to pray and to meditate to recharge your spirit. And lastly, 10, you have a right to do it all differently again next year. Just because you change things one year, try something different, does not mean you have it written in stone. Next year, you can always change it back or do it yet another way. Thus ends the reading. Our plate is shared here at FPC, always with a different agency every month. This month, it's our own guest table. For the work of the guest table and the work of our church, I invite you to give generously. And I think we're having Mark share a few words about guest table. Come on up, Mark.
Thank you.
I was looking for you up on the balcony.
Yeah.
Realizing, of course, you were up there.
Greetings from the balcony. And I think I speak for everyone in the balcony when I let you guys know that the tops of your heads look amazing week after week. Seriously, nicely done. Yeah, the balcony's clapping. Nicely done, all of you. So we are in our 9th year of guest table, and there are some great information in the order of service and in the newsletter, which I'm hopefully not going to repeat, but I do want to add a few things. People often kind of want stats about food insecurity. And to give very real numbers, they're hard to come by because a lot of people don't report when they're food insecure. But estimates from 2021 are that up to 200,000 people in Middlesex County, Massachusetts, are facing food insecurity. So that's obviously one issue we're trying to address, but let's be honest, one dinner once a month doesn't do a whole lot. But there are so many other advantages to community dinners. Sharing meals together helps promote physical, social, and behavioral health. And I'm not just making this up. Physically, people tend to eat more fruits and vegetables when they eat with others, and they experience fewer sugar and processed foods. Eating on our own, I tend to eat crap. I should speak for myself, right? Eating on my own, my husband will tell you, if left to my own devices, I would have cold cereal 3 meals a day. Sharing meals together lowers the occurrence of depression and strengthens the sense of belonging and purpose. A large majority of older adults, and again, a brief bit of history, if we were having a food pantry along with our community dinner, we would probably attract more families, more younger people who would come for the food pantry, stay for the dinner. The reality is we are offering a meal, and the majority of our guests are, as I am, an older adult. Lowers the occurrence of depression and strengthens the sense of belonging. A large majority report feeling happier when eating with others and say the food tastes better with friends around. How many of us always think whenever anybody else cooks, it tastes better? Unless I'm the one cooking, then you probably won't say that. Older adults who are more socially connected are reported to live longer, feel better, and experience fewer health problems than their counterparts. I also want you to know that your money goes to really good use. And when we're able, we actually give back to this community, and we're not sure you're aware of that. In 2018, we were able to donate $500 towards the dishwasher replacement and another $500 towards a new convection oven at the time. In 2022, we were able to spend $500 and buy tents for the church so that we could have some outdoor dinners. Excuse me. So we try to give back when we can because we're incredibly grateful for all the support we have received from you. Speaking of that support, it takes a lot of people to put on this dinner, and once in a while we get outside groups to come and volunteer. A Girl Scout group is helping us next week, and we're incredibly grateful for that. But the vast majority of our volunteers come from this community. So I'm going to ask, I don't mean to embarrass anybody or slight anybody, but I want to show you how many people are involved. So if you ever have been involved, first of all, if you were on the board of directors 9 years ago and you voted to let us give this a chance, please stand. If you've ever been on the planning committee to put these meals together, please stand. Yes, there are people in the balcony standing. If you have ever helped promote these meals, made flyers, put things in the newsletter, please stand. If you have shopped for the food for these meals, please stand. Other people I know have shopped, but Marcia has become our go-to shopper. If you have ever helped me set up tables, chairs, yes, thank you. And some of you folks at home should probably be standing as well. If you've ever served a meal, please stand. If you've ever done the great job of cleaning up after the meal, please stand. Yes, exactly. Thank you all. It really has taken this village, and we've been grateful, and we're going to keep doing it. And while we don't have anything to display at table and coffee hour, several of us will be wearing these lovely T-shirts or a guest table apron. Feel free to ask any of us questions and stop by and say hello. Thank you.
While the choir is coming up, I just wanted to give a little background. You'll see the title of our anthem and you'll think, didn't we sing that already? Well, there are two tunes to this. The first one by Gustav Holst, which we opened the service with, and this one by Harold Dark. And they both compete in my heart for which is my favorite. If you had to ask me to choose, I just wouldn't. And in the opening hymn, we sang some updated words, and for our anthem, we'll sing the more traditional words by Christina Rossetti, and some of the most beautiful Christmas poetry that I know.
Good morning again. If I seem a little more scattered than usual, which hopefully I do, hopefully I don't usually seem this scattered, it's because I got here this morning and found that my file that has my whole text in it was corrupted and that only the reading was there. Fortunately, in this once in a blue moon situation, I had printed off the sermon on paper to hand to Trevor for reasons that will become apparent. And so I had the sermon with me, and so I just had to frantically Google for opening words and closing words in the reading, and I found most of them, and then realized like 5 minutes before the service, oh yeah, the Chalice lighting words were mine. I need to rewrite those. But I think we're all prepared here now and ready to move on with the service. It is the dark, cold, quiet, still time of year. And we all have people we know in our lives, perhaps they are ourselves, who suffer from seasonal affective disorder and find this a difficult and sad time of year to get through. And we have people who have anniversaries of the deaths of loved ones at this time of year that may sharpen their experience of the winter. And then there are the newer sources of grief. Loved ones lost this year for whom this will be the first holiday without them. And those losses can be big or small, but in truth, actually, they're always big. With every ornament I put on the bottom rung of my tree this year, I was aware that my ornament tearing down cat, Loki, is no longer with us this holiday season. And our newer cat, Mercury, is unbelievably respectful of the tree so far. Some of us are remembering old sorrows at this time of year, like the unthinkable deaths at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut in December 2012. I know many of you were also hit hard by that information here in New England, so close to us, but it created an open wound throughout our society. And then there are newer societal griefs, the shootings in Burlington, Vermont, and if they weren't depressing enough, we heard this week the absolutely devastating news that the shooter in that situation was a Unitarian Universalist, reminding us that hatred and conflict and violence can happen anywhere at any time. And the conflict which escalated that hate behind the acts of violence, which has been so devastating to all of us since October, the conflict in Gaza and Israel. I know it's on all of our hearts this holiday season as we head into a time when we remember something miraculous happening in that little town in Bethlehem, hoping that ceasefire will last, hoping or start again, hoping that hostages will be freed, hoping for an end to the devastation in Gaza and humanitarian aid to be supplied and get through more plentifully. Sometimes our cultural griefs are for figures lost in this time, remembering that a beloved character like Wilfred Mott would be seen on television for the last time, or the death of Rosalind Carter, someone dear and precious to many of our hearts. We all have different levels of this overwhelming societal or personal grief and the seasonal depression which we carry into the holidays. It can be set aside for some, and it can be overwhelming for others. And for some of you, you're saying, oh, I just came because I'm an usher or a choir member, and you mean I have to sit here and listen to grief for the whole sermon? But don't worry, there's a role for you too, those who are happy and joyous at this time of year. But what I want to say for those of us in the blues is that it's okay to be in the blues this time of year. And I wanted to talk about honoring and holding grief and how we do that. Too often we want to push grief quickly aside as a society, jump straight to the healing, and our society urges us to do that and is full of advice, even in our wintry movies, to let it go, right? And there's less information about how to hold on and go on when that grief is clinging to you. The poet Gregory Orr wrote a poem I find helpful for acknowledging this. He writes, "Grief will come to you. Grip and cling all you want, it makes no difference. Catastrophe is just waiting to happen. Loss, you can be certain of it. flow and swirl of the world carried along as if by dark current. All you can do is keep swimming. All you can do is keep singing. And indeed, that's what I do in my grief. I sing. And for those not in grief, I want to say that when you see someone being carried along by that current, just be with them, like a bridge over troubled water, someone to cling to, hold on to when that current is strong. That's exactly what most people need, a bridge over troubled water. Don't necessarily try to end the storm or calm the current, stop the flow and swirl of the world. Just lay yourself down beside them, metaphorically or physically when appropriate. Be that rock, be that bridge. Azim Khamisa, president of the Child Safety Network, and I apologize if I got his last name wrong there, lost his son Tariq to gun violence, and he wrote a book with Gillian Quinn titled The Secrets of the Bulletproof Spirit, How to Bounce Back from Life's Hardest Hits. In it, they talk about the Sufi tradition of sunsetting your grief after 40 days of grieving. You give your grief its due for 40 days, and then there comes a point in time when it's right to release it. Now, he's the first to say that sometimes grief does need longer, but the idea is to have a ritual way to release grief. Khamisa and Quinn write, if you want to maximize your own spiritual resilience, it's critical that you invoke the sunset clause, which signals to your soul and to the universe that you are ready to stop grieving. You'll bounce back a lot faster and much more fully if you recognize the right time to stop grieving, and if you can summon the inner strength to start a journey away from your grief and towards the happiness that awaits you. It's as important to know the proper time to stop grieving as it is to know how to grieve properly in the first place. He suggests 3 possible rituals for putting away the grief when the time is right, when the time comes. One is to simply watch a sunset. Watch that sunset from start to finish intentionally, saying to yourself that you are letting the sun set on your grief. The second, if you're not ready for that maybe, is to write a letter to your grief, saying you're ready to let it go, and then tying it to a balloon and watching it float away. And lastly, if you're not even ready for that yet, he suggests you can write a letter to your grief, put it in a box, tuck it someplace up high, but knowing you can revisit it, but you're putting it away for now. Khamisa elaborates in an interview saying, I explained to you my Sufi ritual, but all faiths have rituals. You can have a sunset on grieving because if you don't stop grieving, you have to have a sunset on grieving because if you don't stop grieving, you remain in victimhood. So while it's important to grieve, it's also important to stop grieving. Now, the Sufi tradition says grieve for 40 days. I suggest to grieve as long as you want, but then you got to stop that grieving and take that energy and put it in something positive for society. By creating or whatever it is you'll do, if you want to join a nonprofit or go volunteer or work in a soup kitchen or give or help a lady cross the street, in any way you can, he continues, go out there and create compassionate deeds, because in that giving of compassionate deeds is where the real healing comes in. He says, I love talking to kids because I know I'm saving lives. I know that I'm keeping kids away from gangs and guns and violence. I know that I'm empowering the right choices. I know that I'm teaching the principles of peacemaking, love, forgiveness, and compassion. And through that, I get the healing. So you know, I love the work because it has got so much meaning that my son did not die in vain. So at some point, whatever your hit was, right there is the message of once you're done with the grieving pieces, you evoke the sunset clause, you stop grieving, you take that energy and transform it to the soul or the spirit because the soul is a prism. It can take dispersed negative dark light and create positive, bright, laser-focused light, and that's what you've got to do, he concludes. That's what you've got to do. Even after you sunset your grief, though, it may pop out again. That box may open. This time of year is the time for many when the box opens. The cold, the darkness, that forced sense of joy of the holiday season, those can all awaken the grief. But more, the idea that holidays are about family and loved ones make those who are missing someone or those who are not alone, or those who are without the family they seek, whether from estrangement or loss or lack of finding the love they sought. That absence of family at this time of family-based celebrations can be a reason that this becomes the bleak midwinter. So yes, there's a time for grief, and there's also a time to sunset your grief, but there's also the knowing that grief can return. It's a cycle, a spiral, and that too is a normal part of the experience. So right now, we honor that there is grief and anger and sorrow. We know that there will come the sunsetting, the acceptance. That's the hope we began by lighting a candle for. Just as darkness gives way to light, just as winter turns to spring, our lives will spiral into grief and out of it again. President Biden, in talking about grief and death to military families 10 years ago, said this about the death of his son. I was angry. Man, was I angry. I was a practicing Catholic at the time, but I was mad at God. Oh, man. I remember being in the Capitol Rotunda, walking through to get the plane to get home to identify. Anyway, I remember looking up and saying, God, I was talking to God myself, God, you can't be good. How can you be good? And he went on to say, just when you think you're going to make it, you're driving down the road and you pass a field or you see a flower and it reminds you, or you hear a tune on the radio, or you just look up into the night and you know and you think, maybe I'm going to make it, man. Maybe I'm not going to make it, man. Because you feel at that moment the way you felt the day you got the news. But he concludes with this hope. There will come a day, and I promise you and your parents as well, when the thought of your son or your daughter or your husband or wife brings a smile to your lips, before it brings a tear to your eye, it will happen. My prayer for you is that that day will come sooner or later. But the only thing I have more experience than you in is this. I'm telling you, it will come. In the end, if you are in the dark night of the soul now, do know that the returning of the light is just around the corner. If you find yourself in despair or grief, treat yourself gently. Know that this will pass and reach out for help. For that is what the rest of us, we are here for. All of us are here for, to create religious community. And one of the deep purposes of religious community is that we spend our joys together so that we can have one another in our sorrows. We walk this road together so that we won't find ourselves alone when we get to the deepest part of the woods. We are the bridge, so the bridge will be there for us. And that makes all the difference, to borrow words from Robert Frost. It is here we live deliberately, to echo Thoreau. Here we spend our one wild and precious life, in the words of Mary Oliver. To quote Rebecca Parker, here we choose to bless the world. Remember, when you're down and out, when you're on the street, when evening falls so hard, we will comfort you. We'll take your part. Oh, when darkness comes and pain is all around, like a bridge over troubled waters, we will lay us down. Like a bridge over troubled waters, we will all lay down for you. Friends, I am glad you are here because someone in this congregation needs you right now. I am glad you have one another, and I'm glad we're connected to the larger network of other churches and the Unitarian Universalist Association and the nonprofit organizations we partner with, because their warmth and their love has poured out time and again to people in trouble, just as yours has poured out to them in times of need. Just as you've all donated to the plate-sharing organizations and to this church, it's all ready, and all of us are ready to send love back when you need it for this community. There are times we might forget just exactly what it is that brings us here, but in our times of grief, oh, then we know. We are here to comfort one another. We are here to mourn together. We are here to mark the passing of lives, individual and global, in religious community, that our lives are not forgotten, but honored and lifted up. We are here to make a difference to choose the path to bless the world, to walk the path of love and justice. Like a bridge over troubled water, we are the church of light and hope. May it be so. Our next hymn is my favorite hymn, my favorite Christmas carol in all the world. I heard the bells on Christmas Day. But my favorite Christmas carol, I believe, should be sung to a particular tune, which is not the tune in your hymnals. So don't even open your hymnals. Look instead in your orders of service. You've got the tune there. Or just read the words up on the screens. Please rise in body, mind, spirit. Oh, wait, one other thing. I think it still says in here, peace on earth, goodwill to men. We sing peace on earth, goodwill to all. So we have a little time left now in our service to share those things that are on our hearts and in our soul. And so I want to invite you to share your joys and sorrows together in community. We'll begin with our lay minister sharing that one that we've received by email. For all those joys and sorrows shared. Oh, one more?
I would like to light a candle of remembrance and love for Shirley Farmer.
Yes.
Who left us this past week, but she will never be forgotten. She was just a wonderful, wonderful addition to this congregation.
And let me add, we'll be having a memorial service for Shirley Farmer, who was like 99.9 years old, on Saturday, December 16th at 1 p.m. We are hosting this service as her congregation. We're doing it kind of for us, the families involved, but we really asked them, can we do a service? And so we're going to be having a sign-up sheet for lots of volunteer roles as we are doing a potluck reception and doing this old church style. So please look for that in your FPC announce. Our words of prayer and meditation come from my late colleague, Cynthia Fredo, who I knew when I served in Gardner, Mass. From 2002 to 4. Psalm for the Wintered Soul, and I'm going to abridge it. To the weaver of molecules, the spinner of stars, the impulse that gives birth to the universe, to the earth, to me. In the deepest, darkest night of my wintered soul, I wrap myself in the blanket of my sadness and grief, pain and suffering, doubts and concerns, fears and questions, and look out from my wondering eyes towards the light that dares to penetrate the layers of blindness that surrounds me. So obscured is my vision because of the trials and tribulations of this life, that it is your fractal rays of possibility and hope that I seek to inspire me to emerge from this cocoon that holds me. Each luminescent ray of love and hope and possibility is that catalyst which I need to transform my thoughts and emotions into fuel for that inner fire, which will dispel the darkness of my night, which will help me to see more clearly the embers of love and hope and possibility that dwell within me. I long to be fulfilled with renewed energy and strength, to thrust new life into these wings of my rebirth, this fragile fragments of my life, the ingredients in the alchemist's hand, creating new energetic substance to course through my veins. 2, the weaver of molecules, the spinner of stars, the impulse that gives birth to the universe, to the earth, to me. In the deepest, darkest night of my wintered soul, I shall look through the window of my expectant eyes towards the source of my being, waiting as I do. I was never meant to remain in the confinement of darkness. I was created to dwell in the infinite light. Spring will come again. This I know. And I will be ready for my emergence and unfolding, that I might soar ever higher into my own becoming, into the light of my own transcendence, reawakened, renewed, reborn. Amen, and blessed be. Our closing hymn is a more modern carol, and the numbers in your order of service are wrong. The number on the board here is right, so it's 224, and the words will be up on the screens. Please rise in body or in spirit. Of all the words I looked to find, the ones by Douglas Taylor were the ones I wasn't able to find. So let me just say this. Sail on, Silver Girl. Sail on by. Go in peace. Amen.
Peace.
you.